Stop dreaming. Start writing. Start writing as if it's your last day on earth. You know why a man suffers? Only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. The answer to the problem of suffering is not away from the problem, but it's inside the problem. The existence of pain will not be met by deadening sensitivity, but by increasing it, by exploring and feeling out the manner in which the living being itself wants to react, in which its innate wisdom has provided. Like too much alcohol, self-consciousness makes us see ourselves double, and we make the double image for two selves, mental and material, controlling and controlled, reflecting and spontaneous. Thus, instead of suffering, we suffer about suffering, and suffer about suffering about suffering. Peace can be only made by those who are peaceful, and love can be shown only by those who love. No work of love will flourish out of guilt, fear, here is the vicious circle. If you feel separate from your organic life, you feel driven to survive. Survival, going on living, thus becomes a duty and also a drag, because you are not fully with it, because it does not quite come up to expectations. You continue to hope that it will, to crave for more time, to feel driven, all the more to go on. This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play. I've realized that the past and the future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. If happiness always depends on something expected in the future, we are chasing a will or the wisp that ever eludes our grasp, until the future and ourselves vanish into the abyss of death. The art of living is neither careless drifting on the one hand, nor fearful clinging to the past on the other. It consists in being sensitive to each moment and regarding it as utterly new and unique, in having the mind open and wholly receptive. We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time, in which the so-called present moment is felt as nothing but an infinitely small hairline between an all-powerfully causative past and an absorbingly important future. We have no present. Our consciousness is almost completely occupied with the memory and expectation. We do not realize that there never was, is, nor will be there any other experience than the present experience. We are therefore out of touch with the reality, We confuse the word as talked about, described, and measured with the world, which actually is. We are sick with a fascination for the useful tools of names and numbers and symbols and signs and conceptions and ideas. Tomorrow and plans for tomorrow can have no significance at all unless you are in full contact with the reality of the present. Since it is in the present and only in the present that you live, there is no other reality than present reality. Even if one were to live for endless ages, to live for the future would be to miss the point everlastingly. If then my awareness of the past and future makes me less aware of the present, I must begin to wonder whether I'm actually living in a real world. Stay in the center and you will be ready to move in any direction. For unless one is able to live fully in the present, the future is chaotic. There is no point whatever in making plans for a future which you will never be able to enjoy. When your plans mature, you will still be living for some other future beyond. You will never be able to sit back with full contentment and say, "Now I have arrived." Your entire education has deprived you of this capacity because it was preparing you for the future instead of showing you how to be alive now. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain, so obvious, so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. It's better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than having a miserable life. If the universe is meaningless, so is the statement that it is meaningless. If this world is a vicious trap, so is its accuser. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. If you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you'll spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living. Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. The art of living is neither careless drifting on the one hand nor fearful clinging to the past on the other. It consists in being sensitive to each moment, regarding it as utterly new and unique, in having the mind open and wholly receptive. You see, for all life is an act of faith and an act of gamble. The moment you took a step, you do so by an act of faith, because you don't really know what the floor's not going to give you under your feet. The moment you take a journey, what an act of faith. The moment that you enter into any kind of human undertaking in relationship, what an act of faith. Paradoxical as it may seem, the purposeful life has no content, no point. It hurries on and misses everything. Not hurrying, the purposeless life misses nothing, for it is only when there is no goal and no rush, and that the human senses are fully open to receive the world. But you cannot understand life and its mysteries, and as long as you try to grasp it, indeed you cannot grasp it, just as you cannot walk off with the river in a bucket. If you try to capture running water in a bucket, it is clear that you do not understand it, and that you will always be disappointed. For in the bucket, the water does not run. To have running water, you must let go of it and let it run. Let go. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. We have made a problem for ourselves by confusing the intelligible with the fixed. We think that making sense out of life is impossible unless the flow of events can somehow be fitted into a framework of rigid forms. To be meaningful, life must be understandable in terms of fixed ideas and laws, and these in turn must correspond to unchanging and eternal realities behind the shifting scene. But if this what making sense out of life means, we have set ourselves the impossible task of making fixity out of a flux. Problem that remain persistently insoluble should always be suspected as question asked in the wrong way. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Just as true humor is laughter at oneself, true humanity is knowledge of oneself. No one is more dangerously insane than one who is sane all the time. He is like a steel bridge without flexibility, and the order of his life is rigid and brittle. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab, you don't hold the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. If we cling to the belief in God, we cannot likewise have faith, since faith is not clinging but letting go. A scholar tries to learn something every day. A student of Buddhism tries to unlearn something daily. Real travel requires a maximum of unscheduled wandering, for there is no other way of discovering surprises and marvels, which, as I see, is the only good reason for not staying at home. Zen is a liberation from time. For if we open our eyes and see clearly, it becomes obvious that there is no other time than this instance, and then the past and the future are abstractions without any concrete reality. We must abandon completely the notion of blaming the past for any kind of situation we are in, and reverse our thinking and see the past always flows back from the present. That now is the creative point of life. So you see, it's like the idea of forgiving somebody. You change the meaning of the past by doing that. Also, watch the flow of music. The melody as it's expressed is changed by notes that come later. Just as the meaning of a sentence, you wait till later to find out what the sentence means. The present is always changing the past. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, join the dance. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. There is only this now. It does not come from anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's not permanent, but it's not impermanent. Though moving, it is always still. But when we try to catch it, it seems to run away, and yet is always here, and there is no escape from it. And when we turn around to find the self which knows this moment, we find that it has vanished like the past. Without birth and death, and without the perpetual transmutations of all the forms of life, the world would be static. No rhythm, no joy, no dance. The startling truth is that our best efforts for civil rights, international peace, population control, conservation of natural resources, and assistance to the starving of the earth, urgent as they are, will destroy rather than help if made in the present spirit. For as things stand, we have nothing to give. If our own riches and our own way of life are not enjoyed here, they will not be enjoyed anywhere else.